All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream. I hope everybody is doing well tonight. Spiro, you are indeed first on both Twitch and YouTube. Congrats. So we're going to be picking up where we left off on the last stream with asset hot reloading. And so I think I've got most of that stuff figured out in terms of how we're going to finish this off. And so we are going to see if we can actually get that running and working tonight. We'll see how that goes. But before we do that, I do want to just take a quick second and thank the supporters of the channel, beginning with our elite partner, Javier Lazaron, followed by our partners, Gaboli's Inc. and Matt Ausgard. There's the highest tiers of subscription over on Patreon and YouTube memberships, followed by the list of supporters you see here on the screen. They are a combination of the other tiers of support over on YouTube memberships, Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for that support. It is greatly appreciated and helps me cover the financial costs of running the channel. Things like software licenses, hosting fees, eventually items like assets and things of that nature. So thank you very much for that. And of course, it would be remiss of me not to thank all of you guys, the viewers, who are here and are either joining me live, either on the YouTube side or on the Twitch side, or if you're just catching the VOD after the fact. Thank you guys very much for being here. Without you guys, this project and thus this channel would not exist. So thank you very much for your support there. All right, Sikelos, how's it going? Mostly the Twitch side. Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised though. So the YouTube side seems to be like where most of the VOD folks are, right? But yeah, that seems to be most of the traffic over on that side. Although we have had nights where YouTube is actually more active than Twitch. So usually though, Twitch is a little bit more active. Anyway, good to see you. So, last night we had kind of gone through, a little bit of logic in terms of getting our hot reloading working, or at least kind of getting things set up to enable that. So if we go to our to-do, we had some work items here. And so we separated the hot reload request in the VFS. The call for that rather, and that should return a watch ID. We have that hooked up. We removed all of the things for hot reloading, both in the VFS request and the returned VFS asset data, as well as references to the file watch ID within those two. And we also found some other stuff having to do with source assets that did not need to be in the runtime. So we did a lot of cleanup there. And then we also took care of the firing off of the VFS specific event when a file system watch actually performs an update. So we've got those done. And then we have the intercept the message in the asset system and interpret how to handle it. And that's kind of where we left off in the middle of that. And so we're going to go ahead and essentially we're going to probably tackle this one type of asset at a time. Maybe one system at a time. I'm thinking probably one of the easiest ones to go ahead and verify is probably going to be maybe the shader. Because we can, quickly change some properties on a shader and just kind of recompile that and get that working. So we're going to try that, and then we'll move on maybe to some other things like textures, for example. So once we have that working in one place and we've got an example of it, we could probably just move on, frankly, and then just, kind of handle the hot reloads for the different asset types as we need them. But I think shaders and support for shaders and textures are probably going to be the two that we need right off the bat. So once we have that, we can check this off. We're going to be pretty close to that tonight, I think, if not working. And then the firing off of the asset system specific hot reload event accompanied by a watch ID, that is going to be something that we kind of tackle in tandem with this. So that is kind of the plan for tonight. Let's see, made a window in Windows today, and I'm And I only cursed Microsoft a dozen times first time. Yeah, it usually is at least 3 dozen times. But frankly, like with windowing code, especially for game engines and things like that, like you do it once and it's kind of, you can just reuse that code, generally speaking. At least I have. All right. So, with that said, let's have a look at a couple of things here. So I left a note to myself, left off, move to above. And the reason for that is because we were in the middle of actually adding a stopwatch, which I didn't actually think of last night. I thought of offline. So we need, we have a function here to watch for a reload, right? And that returns to us a watch ID. And so all we would need to do to stop one of those watches is provide a watch ID, right? So we essentially just need a way to turn this off. And this is going to follow the same principle, excuse me, that the watch for reload does. So down here at the bottom, we had something in here. I think I had this as a to-do last night. I went ahead and did this offline. So the VFS file, when we have a deleted file, we were like, oh, what do we do with this? Do we need to do anything? Well, yes, we need to go ahead and stop watching the file. And so we can actually get rid of the asset watch in the asset system, right? So this move to above is because all of this code probably technically belongs in the function above that we were just looking at. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take, let's see, everything from here down. And I'm going to actually copy it. I'm not going to cut it because there's actually some stuff I want to leave down there. We'll go ahead and remove the watch, right? So we'll go ahead and get the node. This return here does not need to be false in the event of an error. So essentially the way that this is going to work is we provided a watch ID so we don't have to look that up. We still use that to go ahead and find the node in the binary search tree. We grab the index out of that node, and then we use that index to index into the watches array to get a pointer to the actual asset watch. At which point we go ahead and we set everything back to default values. And that is how we remove a watch at this level. So let's see. We do have notification occurred that the asset blah, 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 watch will be removed. So I think we can do, we can modify this a little bit. And we can say watch for asset. And then we can go ahead and say that, and then has been removed, right? And so we can keep that. And then we'll go back down here to the bottom, and all of this code here, we can now get rid of, with the exception of, actually, we don't even need that. Do we need that trace message? I think we can have the trace message, but I think what we'll do is not echo an asset has been deleted from disk. Watch will be removed, right? And then instead of doing the watch removal here, what we'll do is we will say asset system stop watch, right? And then we'll just do state, and then watch ID we can just pass through, and then that is all we have to do. Now there is one other thing. Let's see. We do not need the name over here anymore. You know what? Let me close this buffer. We don't really need that anyways. So we can get rid of this, right, and just output that. Because when we call asset stopwatch, that's going to go ahead and tell us what asset we're actually stopping the watch on. So this function, file deleted, and file written only actually need to exist if we have hot reloading enabled, right? So that's another thing where we can say if Kohi hot reload, right? And then go to the bottom and end if. And then we probably also need to go to the top where we have these, and we'll do it here as well. So if Kohi hot reload, and then end if, right? And there's another place that we're going to need this as well. So we'll do a search for VFS file written, and that is going to be where we load for these events, right? So we need, again, we don't want to be executing those if we don't have file hot reloading enabled, right? So there's that. And I think at this level, that is all we're going to need to do to actually handle those events properly. With that being said, I did go ahead and let's see, where did I put that? Did I put that all the way at the bottom? Yes. I did go ahead and kind of create an example of what one of these reloads might look like, right? So we're going to receive from the VFS the event code VFS file written to disk. So we check that code, obviously. We extract the state and asset data as we did last night. We output a message. We get the watch ID. We grab the node from the binary search tree. We go ahead and we grab the index. We access the watch through that. We're actually doing this in two places. So I probably ought to put in another function to just do this so that we don't have repeated code, right? Because ultimately what we want is we want this asset watch back, right? We want a pointer to that. So maybe let's go ahead and just static asset watch. We'll take a pointer to that. And then we'll do get watch. And we'll do, let's see, what are we going to need for that? We are going to need the asset system state. And we are going to need the U32 watch ID, right? And from there, I'm not going to bother checking state, right? Because this is an internal only function, so I'm not really too worried about that. What I really want to do is take this whole section of code and put it here. Now, actually, I don't need watch ID. That's already passed in. So we search this, right? And then we grab the index, and then we can actually, instead of doing this, we can actually just return that. And there we go. Right? So anywhere we need to actually pull this up, we can actually just do that with that instead. So we can just say, let's get rid of this, and then we'll say here, get watch, and we'll pass state and watch ID. There we go. We'll also need to take this to the top. So I guess let's go to here, and we'll need to paste in the declaration. So that we have that. And then, let's see, there was another spot in here where we were doing that. Where was that? Watch for reload. Stopwatch, I think it was. Here, yes. All right, so we don't really need that comment there. So what we can really do here is we could just say get what, oops, that is not what I wanted. Yeah. Get watch state, and then watch ID, and then all of this stuff up here we no longer need. Right? Okay. Yep. So that should handle that. And then back, oh, you know what? There is one more thing I actually just thought of that we need to do as well. Let me copy this guy. And when we do, let's see. I suppose we ought to go to get watch, actually. When we are looking at state lookup tree, right? So watches and lookup tree are only going to exist if we have hot reloading, right? So we want to if-def those out as well, which also means anywhere that watches shows up, like here, we need to if-def that out. And actually, this is going to be all the way down to there. Which actually, instead of having two if-def sections there, let's actually take this guy and we'll put it up here. And then we can actually just have a single section there with all of that, right? So this whole section only runs in that case. Whoops. Okay, so watches is there. Again, for shutdown, we actually need to surround this section as well. Let's see, lookup tree. Yeah, so this is going to be another. All right. Cool. Let me catch up on chat for a second. Singy, good to see you. How are you doing? Pixel Checksum, good to see you as well. Started learning CS today. Nice. Good stuff. Lou the Coder, it has been a minute since I've seen you. I hope you've been well. Been a while since I tuned in on these live streams. Amazing progress. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it has been. How long has it been, actually? I haven't seen your name pop up for quite a while. Let's see. It wasn't so much the writing that got me most upset. It was the, hey, follow these directions and explanations to make a window. Now to make a thing that actually compiles build, delete that stuff you just wrote and copy paste this other thing. And this was on the Microsoft website. Yeah, their documentation is hilariously bad in some instances, right? Especially for some of the legacy APIs around like WinForms and stuff like that. Yeah, some of it's terrible. Actual lines of code was only just under 80. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. It's been months watching the recordings here and there. University had a lot going on this year. That's totally fair. I get it. Glad to have you here, though. But I do understand, you know, real life kind of doing the thing, as it were, and getting in the way, for lack of a better term. But, you know, that's never a bad thing. Okay, so I think we're good. I wanted to do one more search on lookup tree, just to make sure that everything using the lookup tree is also within hot reload tags. Which all of that stuff is, that is, and that is. Okay, so I think we're good as far as that goes. So this event register will only actually happen if we have hot reloading enabled. So, we kind of said before that we were going to do that, but we never really got around to doing it. Now it actually functions that way. So the other thing I need to do is take this over to the header file, because I don't think I've added it there. Or if I have... no, I haven't. Okay, so again, in the header file, this is wrapped in a if-def. So let's see. You want to put the declaration here of the actual function, but then again, similar to how we did this guy, we want to define a macro for this that becomes a no-op when hot reloading is not enabled, right? So we want to essentially do the same thing. So we'll say define, and then asset system release, wait, what was that? Stopwatch. And we'll do state and watch ID, right? And that is going to call underscore stopwatch state watch ID. Okay. And then we'll take this line, take a copy of that. And in the else, we're essentially going to have the same thing, except it's going to be a no-op, right? So that is good to go. I wonder if we should... We are using a U32 for this all over the place, but I feel like this is one of those scenarios where maybe we should type def this. Right? Because now we're using a U32, but maybe it'll be something else, right? So like maybe we have like a file watch type def, that's instead of U32 we use file watch. I don't know. I guess I'm overthinking it for now. We'll just kind of stick with what we have, I guess. All right. So now back to the implementation file. When we actually have a written event that happens, right? We grab all this data just as we have been doing before. Now, of course, we can use getWatch to do that. So we set up a void pointer that is our out asset, right? And that is because the event that we're going to call doesn't know what asset type it is, and that is just fine. Well, for reasons we'll explain in a moment. So what we want to do is we actually just want to set up a void pointer that's actually going to hold a pointer to the asset, right? Really, because all that we really care about is the address of this, right? We can actually cast it to the correct asset type within the system that's going to be processing the message. And so that's how we're going to handle that. And then we have this handle asset by type when hot reloading. So I kind of put together a quick example of how this is going to work for the binary asset type. So the first thing we do is we allocate some memory for that asset. Remember, we said that as a rule, whenever we hot reload an asset, we are going to allocate new memory for that asset. And that's going to be treated as a brand new asset, right? And basically where we're going to match that in the system is by the watch ID, and not, some pointer in memory. So we go ahead and we create a typed asset, right? In this case, a k-asset binary. And then we go ahead and we create a context object for it, because we are going to be using the asset loaded callback that the asynchronous function uses and already processes all the stuff that we actually need it to. This already does everything that we need it to. So we can actually reuse this. And all we have to do is create a context saying the asset that we are going to essentially load is just going to be typed asset, right? Which is this guy. And then we go ahead and we set the asset data, which is this guy right here, right? We set the context of that, which is really just a void pointer. We set that to context. That is the same thing that the asynchronous job will have been doing, right? So we set that up, And then we call the callback that would have been used for the asynchronous function, but we're doing this synchronously, but this function doesn't know that, right? So we can actually reuse the same code in both places, and just have one single path. And then we go ahead and we set out asset to typed asset. So the advantage here is, this becomes very simple to handle each of the asset types this way, which is great, right? So this is more or less how it works here for each of the types. And then when we can come down here, we just simply say, hey, if we have an out asset, right, if this has been set, because it's defaulted to 0, if it's been set, then we go ahead and we fire off an event, right? So the event context has the watch ID associated with it, which actually, now that I'm thinking about this needs to be sub-0. Glad I took a look at that, because U32 is an array. So we have that watch ID that is given there, and then we fire off the asset hot reloaded event code. We pass out asset as the sender, and then we pass the event context. So if we look at the comment for this guy, we even had put in here that the watch ID is context data U32 sub-0, which is what we have here. And then we say that the asset pointer itself is the sender, which is what we're passing. And that is pretty much it. The only other thing I think to really add here is maybe a warning, where we can just spit out the name of the function, and then say we've got an error here where Smudge with a tier 1 sub. Thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the support. How have you been? Good to see you. Beborn, good to see you as well. Yeah, we're looking to make some good progress today. Hopefully we do. All right. So here I'm just going to say, where was I? I guess we're going to get this if we don't have an out asset, right? So out asset, not set, notification event will not be fired. And then for that first bit of it, we're just going to use function, the function name, right? We're just going to warn there. It's not worth throwing an error over because it's just hot reloading, right? Okay, so we have this whole sort of thing set up where we've got everything prepped before it and after it. All we have to do now is fill out for all these different asset types, right? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take unknown and I'm going to move it down next to max, right? And actually I'm going to get rid of max, right? And I'm going to do default here instead. And I'm going to do kwarn, and we'll do asset type not supported for hot reload. And I'm not going to bother. Actually, do we have? We do have a toString. Okay, I wasn't going to bother, but watch type. Let's go ahead and output that, right? So asset type, and we're going to put %s not supported. And I'll go ahead and also output the function name. Just so we have that, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave these other options here, but I'm going to comment them out, right? Just so that they're here in case we decide that we want to add them. But like some of these types don't make sense to actually support hot reloading, right? We're not going to hot reload a skeletal mesh. I don't think that makes sense. That's error prone. Same with audio, right? There's a lot of complication behind that I don't think is necessary. Shader, though, we do need. Oops, wrong button. Shader, though, we do need. So let's move that up here. So like materials could probably be hot reloaded. Static meshes, no. Height map terrain, no. Scene, no. Bitmap font, no. System map font, no. Text, we could hot reload text. Let's move that up here. And KSIN, we could hot reload that. That's easy enough. So I'll leave these other things here. And essentially those will cascade down into unknown/default, right? These will fall through. And that will be what we use for that. And so as we progress through this and we write the individual types, I'll probably maybe I'll uncomment some of the other types as we actually use them. All right, let me see. Aeroshide, how's it going? Over there on the YouTube side, good to see you. Thank you for the follow, Extreme Yes, I appreciate that. Let's see, been well, just been busy, so haven't stopped by much lately. I totally understand that, Smudge. Totally understand that. I have been too. I was saying actually on the last stream that I've been busy with a lot of IRL stuff, and since last week's stream I hadn't actually touched the project at all until last night's stream. So it had been an entire week almost since I actually got to touch any of this stuff at all. Sometimes it just happens, right? Okay, so let's go to text, right? Which text, I think we only have synchronous functions, right? So, yeah, we don't really have much there. It's just really doing a string duplicate on the content, right? So we don't have sort of a wrapped up kind of fancy function that we can call like we do for binary, right? Because we don't have asynchronous loading for that. But I think that is fine. So let's move this up here. And we'll do break. And in here, I'm going to say kasset text typed, God, I can't type tonight. Typed asset equals kalloc type. And this is going to be kasset text. And the memory tag is going to be asset. Right? So we'll get that. And then we actually don't have to create a context or any of that stuff. Or this. All we actually have to do is, let's see. I do need to, scope this. That's probably why that's bleating. All right, so we need to basically do that, and then we need to say typed asset content equals string duplicate, and we are going to want asset data text, right? And for text assets, it's actually super simple, right? So again, we are just going to take this and put that there. So that is all that's required for a text asset. Super simple, right? Doesn't really get any simpler than that. A shader, let's see, I don't know, what do we have for, I think shaders are also synchronous. Let's do request. Yeah, these are synchronous. Okay. So we do a deserialize on this with the out asset. So you know what? I'm actually just going to grab all of this. We don't need all of it, but I'm going to grab all of it. So let's scope this. We'll do a break here. And then paste this here, right? So instead of out asset, this is going to be typed typed asset. We don't need to do this request. That can go away. The deserialize, though, is going to be asset data.text, or I guess arrow text, right? That's going to go, instead of out asset, that's going to go to typed asset. Okay, we'll free that if that's unsuccessful. And we don't want to free, again, we don't want to free out asset. We want to free typed asset. And then we don't want to boot out here. We just won't set out asset, right? So otherwise, if we are successful, then we're going to move this guy up. And instead of out asset, this is going to be, again, typed asset. Instead of info, the name, let's see. Do we have, I think we have the name under the watch, right? So this is just going to be watch asset name. Okay, so we have that. And then I think all we need to do for this is this, right? Now, for shaders, the way that the way that hot reload for shaders is going to work is going to be a little bit different, right? So there's technically a couple of things that we're going to have to handle in terms of hot reload of shaders. And I'm actually, now that I'm actually thinking about it, I kind of think that we probably shouldn't do this one. Because if we look at an actual shader, what the shader is that we're talking about when we're talking about shader asset, let's see, where is it? Do we not have any? I guess it's all in runtime. Okay. So, I don't know. Let's pull up. I guess the fragment shader for this. Or no, I didn't want the fragment shader. Sorry. I wanted the shader config, which is going to be the KSC file, right? We'll pull this up. So this is the actual shader file, right? So I think if we go to change like much of anything within this, we're gonna be kind of screwed anyways, right? I don't think there's a lot that we could change here that is not going to just completely mess things up. So I think what I might actually do, now that I'm thinking about this, is I think I'm actually going to keep this code, but I'm going to disable it for now, and put a note here. Note, there isn't much value in hot reloading the shader config, which is what this asset type is. That being said, within that asset type, there are two other assets that we have to load, right? So this config tells us, well, it's usually two assets. It can technically be more, can technically be less. It's the actual GLSL files, right? The actual shader code, the fragment shader, and the vertex shader. Those are the things that we actually want to watch for hot reload, not the shader config, right? The shader config, once it's loaded, it's kind of there, it's done. So I think we'll probably leave this one for now. Technically speaking, those are going to be text assets, which we just defined here. So I think let's go ahead and do that one. And then I think I'm going to comment out material, case, and image for now. And then I'm going to put a note here. The below types Probably should not support hot reloading. And then we'll do to do hot reload these types. Okay. So the important ones that we're going to need right now, binary, we probably aren't really going to need that one right away, but it was just kind of a good example. Although I guess the item DB would be an example of something we would do there. So text is going to be the important one, right? So when we go to the shader system and we want to watch for hot reload, the ones that we're going to want to be watching for are going to be the text assets. Thank you for the follow there, Buzztronic. First time chatter, welcome, by the way. I see Vulkan, so I assume a 3D engine, right? You would assume correctly. Yes. Let's see. I got some comments over here on the YouTube side to catch up on. Been playing with gizmo designs lately based on your implementation, and I converted the lines to cylinders so I control the line's thickness. Is this overkill for the gizmo, or how you will do things too? I've actually had thoughts about that too. Because the lines are kind of thin. And I do have hitboxes to handle that, right? But the lines kind of do look a little bit thin. So I might actually convert it to proper 3D geometry as well. So yeah, you're definitely not out of line there, pardon the pun. Let's see. However, in my implementation, I have a circle in the center for each gizmo, but I want to always face the camera at all times to give the illusion of 3D. Do I have to submit new rotated geometry each frame, or the circle is similar to the one in Blender? Depends on how you want to do it, right? So, and my gizmo technically isn't even fully correct yet. Generally, the way that gizmos should work is no matter where they are in space, they should be the same size, and mine technically isn't, right? I've got to fix that, actually. So we're going to fix that once we actually start writing the editor for the game. The way that you typically do that is you would project or unproject the 3D position and get on-screen 2D position, and then actually position the gizmo there in a separate pass over top of everything else, and then you could, then you could handle it that way. I had several reasons for not doing it that way. I've got a few things that I've got to fix around that and kind of play around and experiment with. But yeah, generally speaking, I think the one in Blender, if I remember correctly, for the circles, it only renders the front half of the circle, not the back half. So you don't have that sort of full loop thing that I've got going on my gizmo. So I would probably have to change that as well to only... you'd essentially only want to render things on the front half of the clipping plane, set the clipping plane essentially to the center of where the actual gizmo is, so that way it clips the back half of it. That would probably be the best way to do it. What do you think of Zig, Odin, and Jai? Would you consider using any of them in the future, or something that would replace C, hopefully? How do you structure code around entities? Okay, those are a couple loaded questions. So I'm going to answer them quickly, but so those are all languages that are essentially written by one person. Sometimes, in some cases, they are maintained by several, right? But they're all kind of relatively infant languages, right? And to me, they don't really offer me a whole lot that I would actually use. So I probably would not switch to them. I would, if any of them out of the three, I would probably use Odin, maybe to write some tools and that kind of thing. But I don't think I would actually write an engine on it because, they are relatively young languages. And if you run into a language bug in the middle of something as complicated as a project like this, that's terrible, right? And so that's not something that I want to deal with. And I know that they do exist across the board for all three of those, right? So I have nearly an 80,000 line code base here. I don't want to be dealing with language bugs. I need my language to be solid, which is one of the reasons I'm using C99, right? So yeah, let's see. How do you structure code around entities? So I don't have entities, actually. I do have something that's kind of similar to that, but I'm actually going to be getting rid of it because I'm not a fan of it. And entities and entity component systems and that kind of thing tend to be overkill for most games, right? You really only need them if you're working on something that's super complicated. I call them entity complication systems. They tend to add more overhead and more weight to the code, and more computation that's got to be done, more indirection, and it's generally something that you don't need unless your project is fairly complicated. So in our case, we're probably not going to wind up using one of those. We are going to approach things a little bit differently. We did experiment with a system like that, and I'm removing it for a reason. And I guess I should say what that reason is, I guess, really quickly. So, generally speaking, if you think about it, trying to generalize your scene or your scene graph or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve by using a generic entity component system is because the engine developer essentially said, we don't know what kind of types we're going to be dealing with, so let's just put that problem to the side, and we're gonna foist that off onto the game developer, right? And we're gonna put all the complexity on that side of things, and we're just going to pretend everything works through an interface, and we're just going to be happy with that. And the problem with that is you're putting the problem on the wrong side, right? You're making all this generic stuff because you're saying, hey, the engine doesn't know about this generic stuff, so we have to have all these interfaces and all this fanciness, when really, if you stop and think about it, you stop and think about the data, where things exist, your entities, right, are really known by the game. Your game knows what your types are. Your game knows what types of things you need to render, what order, how they need to be rendered, what effects, how they need to be organized, all of that stuff. And that generally can vary from project to project. So why put this generic thing in your engine where you've got all this complexity to set it up, all this code to actually run it and manage it, all the memory management, trying to get it to be performant without memory fragmentation issues and stuff like that. Why put all of that stuff there when the game already knows what it should be dealing with? The game already knows what its data is and how it's supposed to be used. Put that stuff in the game code. Have the game code actually manage that stuff and just tell the engine, I need this rendered, right? I need this rendered. I need this sound played, right? The engine should be completely ignorant of that kind of stuff because it doesn't need to care about what an object hierarchy is or any of that stuff. The only reason that a lot of object hierarchies exist or entity component systems is for an editor, right? Which again, should be game specific. If you try to make it too generic, then it becomes overcomplicated. So, generally speaking, I don't think that entity systems are the way to go anymore. They were, they've been the hotness for a while now. But when you really think about it, when you get down to brass tacks, the problem exists as a game code problem because the game code is the domain where all of that stuff should exist. So, however you're handling your objects, your scenes, your hierarchies, all that stuff should be managed by the game code because the game knows what it needs. Let's see. Thank you guys for the follows, by the way. I appreciate that over on the Twitch side. I have code that crashes on GCC, but not on Clang. Works 50% of the time every time. That's an interesting one. Observer Herb, how's it going? Good to see you. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that, Buzztronic. The only thing that I can think of is I would put it through Compiler Explorer and analyze the assembly that's being generated and see if you can actually figure out why it is. Non-initialized variables, yeah, it's probably going to be something like that, right? That would be... it's probably going to be undefined behavior, right? Behavior that's undefined by the C or C++ spec. And one compiler will handle that one way, and another compiler will handle that another way because it's undefined. So it's really up to the compiler as to how that gets handled, and that's probably where that is. So you'll want to, look at the assembly that gets generated to try and figure out what the difference is. Alpeon, thank you so much for the Prime sub. I really appreciate that support. Thank you very much. That helps a lot and means a lot to me. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I mentioned when you were talking about young languages. Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Gotcha. Try to run it on MSVC, see what'll happen. Yeah, exactly. All right. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. What's up? All right, let's get back to it. Okay, so when we're talking about hot reloading shaders, we're talking about we really want to watch the text assets that are associated with that. So I'm going to open up the shader system because this is going to be the first place that we actually want to handle this, and we actually have remnants in here of hot reloading and debug builds. Actually, this might be the only instance of it. So I want to switch that from debug to Kohi hot reload, since we have that now. And then we have event register, and we have, let's see, resource hot reloaded. So that doesn't exist anymore. Now it's going to be asset hot reloaded. And then file watch event. So this is, it looks like I already changed this part over. Okay, and I think we've got a hack in here to basically just always reload instead of trying to compare asset generations, which is fine. We can always handle that later. Now, this is registering for the event, right? But this is only half of the equation. This is only going to happen if we actually register for things to be watched. So let's go ahead and change that to hot reload. And then whenever we, let's see, shader create is probably going to be where we're going to want to look. Let's see. So here's the asset shader, right? This is the configuration. And if we peak definition on that, we have, let's see, I think, if I remember, it's been a bit since I've looked at this. Yeah, the shader stage has the shader stage type, and then also has the source asset name and the package name. We probably shouldn't, well, I guess it's, yeah, shader source, so I guess that's fine. Okay. So the next thing that we do is, let's see, we probably don't need to keep a copy of all the resource properties since we now hold a pointer to the resource. This is not going to be true anymore. So let's get rid of that. Let's fix that if it is in fact still an issue. So we go ahead and we grab a pointer to hold the new shader, and then we do the stage configs. And I assume we set those up a little bit further down here. Here we go. Here is where we actually make the request to get the text asset, right? So yeah, we should probably adjust a couple things here. So let's actually take this, which is being called a bunch of times because that's kind of dumb. So let's just put that here, and then asset system state, asset state is equal to that, and that's going to have to actually be have a struct tag in front of it because we do not know about that type outside of the asset system. But we can take that here and go asset state, shorten that up a little bit. Okay, so looks like we're using, let's see, this is a string, I guess, right? Okay, so That requires the string representation of it. This requires a K name. And then we also have the package name. Okay, so I think the way I'm going to do this is, as we're processing the stages, right, we've requested the package sync here. I think what I'll do is I'm going to say U32 watch ID equals asset system. Let's do watch for reload. And I technically don't want the underscore version. I want the macro, right? So we'll do that. And then this is going to be asset state. And then the asset type is going to be shader. And then the asset name is actually going to be okay, I guess we can do out shader stage names. Oops. Sub I. Right? Because it needs the K name. And then for package name, we're actually just going to have to do K name creates. And this is going to have to be asset, if I can spell correctly, stages sub I dot package name, right? So that is going to be the watch source file for hot reload, right? So that's how we essentially hook up our file watch for that. Now, there is something in here that we're going to have to do in terms of, storing that somewhere. And I'm thinking, let's see, so we have, So we're actually going to have to store some sort of lookup for watch IDs, and we're going to need multiple watch IDs hooked to a particular shader. So I guess what we need to do, let's go to here, and we're going to say array of file watch IDs, one per stage. And this is just going to be a U32 array, and we're going to do watch IDs. I really need to convert this system to use numeric IDs instead of passing pointers all over the place, but we're going to do that in the future. So we need to add a new array up here. So we'll say out shader watch IDs equals kalloc type C array. The type is going to be U32, and the count is going to be out shader shader stage count. Right, and now we can actually say out shader watch IDs sub I. All right, so we've got storage of that there. So what that's going to be for is once we've identified what shader the watch ID is connected to, this is how we're going to link up the asset watch ID to the actual correct stage so that we actually fully reload the shader source for that stage. And then essentially what's going to happen is we're going to replace this, right? Because that's going to be the source code for that particular stage. So whenever we actually do that, and I think we actually have that. I think we actually have that up here already, if I remember correctly. Let's see, shader reload. me see if this actually does it or not. So we update the generation here. Where is the actual source updated though? I don't think we do. So file watch event, we don't have that in here. So shader stage count, found match if the generation is out of sync, reload the shader. Okay, so this isn't found a match yet. This is going to be if, I guess this is a way to look it up, right? I guess what we could do is we'll say if shader watch IDs sub W equals, and we need to get the watch ID from somewhere, which is going to be up here that we do that. U32 watch ID equals context data U32 sub 0. So if this equals watch ID, right, then replace the existing shader code or shader stage source with the new, right? So in this case, it will say if shader, let's see, assets, we're keeping the text asset there, stage sources, this is what I want, stage sources sub W. If that exists, then we're going to do string free shader stage sources sub W, right? So we'll go ahead and free that one, and then we'll say shader stage sources sub W equals, and we'll do string duplicate, and we're going to want to use, do we actually have, let's see, the sender, we're not actually doing anything with the sender. Okay, so we need to actually grab that as well. That actually should probably be done here. So, kasset text, and we'll do shader source asset equals, and we'll do kasset text sender, right? We probably ought to do some more verification around this. More verification to make sure this is correct. But for now, we'll just kind of assume it is, because the only place that we're subscribing to this is for asset hot reloads of shader sources, right? So let's see. We'll do string duplicates, and this is going to be shader source asset content, right? So we'll go ahead and we'll take that content. We'll take the content out of it, right? And then also here we'll need to release the asset. So asset system release text, and then we'll do engine systems gets asset states, and then shader source assets, just to make sure to clean that up. And we'll do break. And then, let's see. I guess at that point, we actually don't need this stuff anymore. We'll just say reload required is true in this case, right? And we don't need this. Oops. Okay. So essentially what we're doing here is we loop through all of the shader stages, check the watch ID. If it matches, then we go ahead and replace the string, and then flag that a reload is required, and then we reload the shader at that point. So I think that might be all we actually have to do to support this. So I guess let's find out, right? And also let's find out if I screwed anything up in the code. Let me catch up on chat first, actually. Let's see. Windows ME loads. Oof. Oof. Love this NeoVim setup. Do you have a dot file? Yes, I do. I will put that in chat now. So my bot should drop a link. That actually contains a link to an article that I wrote up with all of the extensions and configuration that I'm using for it, an explanation of what they do, why I'm using them, and then it also has a link to a dot file. Project Zero, first-time chatter, welcome. You and Nick Barker are the reason I started learning C last year. Learned so much more about programming and computers. Hats off to you, sir. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you. Let's see. Quomitter, how's it going? First-time chatter as well. Welcome. If you were to write a simple game like Vampire Survivor using SDL, for example, would you write an engine or library first? Would you leave everything specific to that game? Yes. If I were doing a project of that scale, yeah, I would write everything specific to that game. I wouldn't try to make like a library out of it. Thank you guys for the follows, by the way. Cool. Let's see. I didn't mean ECS. There are many ways of structuring entities like classic OOP with inheritance, megastructure entity, which contains all data, creating separate type per entity, and so on. I was curious about your experience with organizing entities, regardless of what they are, in a way that allows them to access the data that they need. So, I'm not a fan of OOP, as you'll see a lot on this channel. You know, there are places where we kind of touch on that a little bit, but I try to avoid it whenever I can. But even more than that, I try to avoid inheritance of any kind. That being said, if I were to write an entity system, I probably would do sort of the Doom, like the Doom 3, id tech style of having a very thin inheritance structure, maybe one level for entities, and just have, an entity that includes 90% of what you need, and then specialize on top of that. But I certainly would not have layer upon layer of it, and I would not use components and all that stuff either. So yeah, it probably would be, if I were to go that way, if I had to go that way, the OOP way, yeah, I probably would use the megastructure that contains all of the data. However, I probably wouldn't do that. I would probably favor a more data-oriented approach and have like a structure of arrays to hold that data instead of an array of structures. Jonathan Blow does do it that way too. Yep, one level of inheritance. Yep. If I were to go that way, that's probably the way I would do it. Whatever is the simplest possible way and the most maintainable way to achieve the goal, basically. There's no one size fits all for everything. It really depends on what your needs are and what you're doing. Let's see. Oh, I foobarred something on the Linux layer. Okay. Oops, and I also have, what is that? That should be one of those. Let's see, that was 900. Right. Watch your written callback. I thought we fixed this. I think this requires the is Boolean, right? So I think that is just, was that? So we have an int, and then a bool, and then the context comes after that. So it should just be that. I think. Did I miss something else? Oh, I need the file path too, which I also have in here. Let me guess, I got them backwards, didn't I? Is it file path then? Yep, I got them backwards. Which actually makes me think, I need to do that for the other platforms as well before we cut this version. All right. Chaos at type to string, undefined reference. Really? Did I forget to... Oh, that's why. I didn't export the symbol. Which actually means I need to do the same thing for that guy, because that's going to be a problem too. No rule to make target Vulkan core. Huh? Time for a full rebuild. Where do you define your custom types like U32? Sorry if I answered that earlier. Don't be sorry. Never need to be sorry for asking questions. So let me get rid of this for a second. I'll come back to that. We have something called defines H, which kind of is where we define like a lot of our top level stuff that we use all over the engine. And this is where those live. We have all of our type defs for our integer types here, our floating point types. We have our Boolean type here, things like a range that defines an offset and a size. Range 32, which is instead of a 64-bit, it's a 32-bit. Our static assertions, type assertions, size assertions, on our different types. All of our invalid IDs, our maxes, our mins, all this kind of stuff exists in here. Whole bunch of platform code, which this probably ought to be moved out of here at some point to our platform layer. Debug, release, hot reload, all those kind of things. We even have some, things for inlining, bunch of conversion, size conversion stuff. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Setting and getting flags, right? So we don't have to write this code all over the place. If we have, flags that are using an integer to contain, a whole bunch of booleans, where we flip individual bits. We just have, these macros to do that and that kind of thing. Let's see. Are you using a GUI library or did you build your own on top of your Vulkan renderer? We're building our own. Yeah, everything here, for the most part, is written from scratch. Let's see. You said an array of types. An array of types. Did I misspeak? I think was that when I was talking about a structure of arrays or an array of structures? Maybe. So what's the question there, I guess? Do you handwrite your metadata on new files, or do you have a plugin I missed? When you're talking, which metadata are you talking about? Let's see. Why are you using short int long for fixed size? Why not use uint32 from std int h? As far as I know, types like long short could be different depending on platform. So that is all covered by our assertions here, right? So I do make sure of that. I've been doing it this way for as long as I can remember. The other reason, I don't know about currently, but if we go here, this potentially includes std and let's see, that's std and h. I think there's other, like, look at all of this stuff that's included in this. Look at all this code. Like, if you actually examine this header file, like, look at all of this code. Like, I'm not even halfway through the file yet. Now, granted, not all of this is highlighted, right? Because it may, there's different flags that turn this on and off, right? But like, I don't need all of this, right? This is just not, right? And my highlighter can't even really keep up with it. I just don't need it, right? It's not, right? So rather than including all of that I then have to run through my compiler all the time, to me, it was just easier to just do this, right? And then static assert it. I think long is 64 in Linux and 32 in Windows. I think that's correct, which is why I do long. Oh, okay. You're talking about this stuff. So this is one thing I actually still kind of have to figure out. So this other editor, which shall not be named, this guy, this is a family-friendly stream, so I have to censor it and say VS, right? But this guy actually has a plugin that will fill that out for you if you do a comment at the top of the file. And then you can just kind of do it like that. I still need to actually find one for NeoVim, because I switched to this several years ago. But the original versions of this code were all written in the other editor back in 2021 before I had actually switched over to this full time. So a lot of these are auto-generated, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll copy it out of one file and move it to another. Yeah, that's essentially what's gone on there. And I sometimes will come in here and update this date when I had something. I don't always remember to do it. Last time I did it was in 2024, but yeah. Incidentally, my reason there for not using stdint is the same reason that I try to avoid using the standard library unless I absolutely have to. Did you measure the compile impact it has, and did you remove any other STDs? Yeah, so I've removed, or I've not used, rather, the standard library in most places. The exceptions being, I do have one or two string processing functions that are using it. There are a couple places I use printf. And then I do also use the standard libraries file processing stuff as well. But I'm working on actually switching all of that over to use the OS specific or the platform specific APIs for all that stuff, so I can get rid of that stuff. In answer to have I measured it? Not recently, no. Made a shortcut on my NeoVim leader IH to insert header, but it's not auto and it bothers me. Yeah, do I still actually have that installed? I wonder. Yeah, I think it was this guy that I was using for it, and it's configurable. Was it in here? Yeah. So it's configurable where you can like put stuff in here and kind of make a template out of it. I haven't found anything like this. Of course, I haven't looked too hard either for NeoVim. But I might just, like, if one doesn't exist, I might just write one. I just haven't had time to do it. But yeah, it was super useful. I do kind of miss that one, but it doesn't make it worth going back to that other editor. I don't use printf, but I use snprintf all the time because I can't be bothered writing an actual string library. Yeah, I get that. I get that. I was using CLion when I found similar and wanted it in NeoVim. Yep. Printf is too strong. Mostly in my case, it's laziness. Actually, in platform Win32, I don't think I use it at all. No, I don't. There I use output debug string and write console. Right, so those are the actual Win API functions. So I use those like on the Windows layer. I just have to convert the Linux layer to do the same thing. Okay, so what was this issue I was running into? In the Vulkan renderer, fatal error, Vulkan core H, file not found. What? Okay. I did do a system update, so I wonder if that foobarred something. Okay, so let's take a look at... I want to investigate really quickly. Let's look at this, and I'll look at my compile flags. Okay, I don't see anything crazy in there that's been added. I gotta check some stuff off screen. I don't necessarily want to... Let me think. Why would... Bear with me just 1 minute. I have to look something up. I need to see if the latest updates to Arch actually borked anything, which they might have done. My drivers work okay. I've got Vulkan Cube. It's just the header's not found. Why? I don't believe... I guess I could reinstall Vulkan headers. Okay, let's try that. Okay. Looks like it fixed the problem with whatever it was. That's really weird, though. Had to reinstall the Vulkan headers library for some reason. Let's see. What was that again? Ah, okay. So we updated our platform watch file to take some more parameters. And there's some issues with that. So if we look at platform H, we have platform watch file, which I believe before only took the file path and the outwatch ID, and now it takes a isBinary flag. So anywhere where we call this directly, which is not a common thing, we have to actually fix that. So in our case, that's going to be a platform watch file. So there's going to be this one in K package is actually fixed. So I am going to have to fix this on Mac OS and Windows platforms, but I'm not going to worry about that for right now. I think it's just going to be these entry files, right? So here. So initialize application. Oh, we changed the event codes for this stuff, right? So, platform watch file doesn't issue an event, I don't think. Watcher written callback. Yeah, we don't do this anymore. Right. Okay. I think. Okay, we're just going to have to accept the fact that our DLL hot reloading for our game code is broken. I do need to fix that. I wonder if I should just fix it now. I kind of don't want to, but I kind of should. Oh, that's annoying. I didn't think about that. Okay, so we probably ought to have a separate so update watches whenever it finds a file that's been written to. Like we had this notify listeners here, right? And the notify listeners was commented out. I forget why. And then we had this event fire, right? Watched file written. And we did away with that in favor of a callback, which I think the asset system was actually using. Where did we do that? Was that in the engine? What was that called? Watcher written callback. Where did we actually get watcher written callback from? Register watcher written callback. That's in the VFS that does that. Okay. So the way that this worked, why did we switch to using callbacks instead of events? This seems like a prime candidate of something that should be an event, not a callback. Because we're going to need multiple things to potentially answer that call. So let's go to event. I think I had that code commented out for a reason. I just never actually fixed it. So let's see. VFS file written to disk. So this is VFS code. asset hot reloading. I want to put this stuff, the extra codes that we're going to add. I actually want these to be defined outside the hot reload block because there are situations outside of this that we might actually want to have that run in release mode. So I'm going to say event code. And we're going to say file written. How did I have that? How did I have that worded in here? Watch file deleted, watch file written. Yeah, that's probably what I should do. Event code watched file written. And we'll have another one. Watched file deleted. Right, and we'll do 27 on that one. So whenever we do this, we're actually going to have to pass. I think this is why I actually switched to using a callback, because we needed a bunch of stuff passed, right? We needed some form of context to get passed. Then we needed file path. Whoops, that is wrong, I think. Why are we passing the file path twice? That should be ID, file path, and then is binary, is what that should be. So we essentially need to pass all of this. Along with the code of event code watch file written. So we could pack part of this into the context data, right? But not all of it. So I think what we might have to do we might actually have to allocate a structure to pass along and then just free it afterwards, right? After we fire this event, we'll have to free it afterwards. Or frankly, we don't even have to allocate it. We can just do it on the stack, actually. Let's see. What do you think about OOP paradigm? I think it gets in the way more than it helps, frankly. Let's see. Luna Moon, how's it going? Good to see you. Letcheraho, how's it going? Good to see you. Looking forward to seeing Kohi running on all BSD distros, right? Let's see. Isn't Linux without GNU just BSD? That's a good point, actually. Are you using an IDE when you're programming, or just using a text editor? It's just NeoVim, yeah. It's kind of both, but I try to keep it as lightweight as possible. Not using printf as like that story about using pure Linux instead of GNU Linux just to tell Richard, I assume you mean Richard Stallman, about it to his face. Lol. Yeah, that would be for the lols, for sure. Stopped using LSP recently on recommendation to increase learning depth. Imagine going to BSD as a daily driver is the same. Probably. Deeper, but leaves you missing the convenience. Yeah, so to me, like, I could write this stuff without an LSP, right? But, like, when you have a code base that is tens of thousands or eventually hundreds of thousands of lines, it's just not practical, right? I mean, you can do it, but why, right? For small toy projects, fine. But for something that's getting kind of large, I don't think that I would actually do that. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do We'll do event context, which means we don't even have event here. Ooh. I think I know why we didn't do this. No, this isn't the... crap, that's why we didn't do it. That's why I switched away. Because our platform code is in Kohi core, and our event system is in the runtime. Because it makes zero sense to have the event system in the core, right? Because core is something that could be used by anything, including tooling, that's not the runtime and doesn't need the runtime stuff. Events are something that are solely used for that. So that's why I did it. I knew there had to be some sort of reason. I was going to say, because we had that in there, and I'd forgotten when I split the two up that we can't do it that way. All right, so that we essentially need to get rid of, right? So that I don't go down that rabbit hole again. So the issue here is that now in our game code, where we go to set up hot reloading for our DLL, we have no way to do that, right? Because we can do platform watch file, which is fine, right? We can just do, I think this, yeah. So the second property there is binary. So this becomes just a true, right? So that resolves that error, but it does not resolve this problem right here. So the issue is when we are running this way, where we do a platform watch file without going through the asset system, the only thing that gets called is this watcher written callback, right? And that's no bueno, right? Because this watcher written callback is set by the asset system, and that's the only thing that currently uses it. Now we have a situation where we actually have two different things that need to use it and two completely separate parts of code. So one way of resolving this would be to change platform watch file to accept a callback function, which is a valid way of doing it. And then when we look at the file watches, we then look at the callback that is registered with that file watch, right? Because we would essentially, when we create the file watch, we would save a function pointer to the function that's passed here. The issue with that is, what if we need one file watched by two different things? I can't think of a scenario where we need that, but like theoretically, it could happen, right? Then we have to have a series of callbacks instead of just one. So what do we do there is the question. We can either clobber the existing and just use the latest one, which seems like a terrible solution. Or we keep an array, and then whenever we have an update found on the file, we loop through the array and make all the callbacks that are registered with that. Option 3 would be we could error out and say, this file's already been watched with a callback. Like, I don't like that either, though. I think I might be overthinking this. I think probably what we should do is just have it handle one callback and that's it, right? Actually, wait a minute though. We never would have a situation where we have one file watch. Never mind. This is not an issue because every time we watch a file, we're going to be issued a new file watch ID. So even if we did call it in two different places for the same file, we would have two watch IDs on that. So that becomes a non-issue. Okay. So let's see. What does this definition take here? So what we really need to do is we need to take... Oh, we have a context too. Potentially. So what we really need is... we would need to extend this function, this platform watch file, to take two callbacks and two contexts. One for file written, one for file deleted. And those would be something we have to provide here. Now we could say, maybe we pass 0 for the deleted context and callback and just not try to call it if it doesn't exist, and that's fine. We could essentially do the same here too. We could do one or the other, and I suppose we could do neither, but that's kind of pointless. Do you do lock-free algorithms? Are they worth it? I haven't really messed with it, no. I haven't really found a need to yet. I haven't run into that being enough of a problem to investigate it, to be honest. I would move events to the core. It seems core-ish enough for me. Well, it's not, though, because... it has its own system state, right? So it requires memory to be allocated for it. It keeps a list of registered codes and handlers for all of those codes. And as a result, technically this shouldn't even be under a folder called core. It should be a system because it is a system, right? It is an event system. I really need to move that. That's before we had the systems folder. That's how old that system is. Now in runtime, we actually have a systems folder, which most of this stuff lives in. We have this legacy core folder, which I'm trying to get stuff out of. An event is in there. So I eventually need to move that, but I don't really want to do that right now. But yeah, systems don't belong in core. Systems belong in runtime. Missing seeing errors without compiling. Stopped using LSP. Oh, I already read that one. Okay. Yeah, that would be really annoying. I mean, it's kind of the old school way of working, I guess, but if you're weak in data structures and algorithms, can you suggest what a realistic goal should be? Which ones do you use often? I don't go too nuts with the data structures and algorithms, right? I use trees every once in a while, graphs, linked lists, things like that. But nothing too crazy, I don't think. I don't really have, at least not that I can think of, other than your typical, containers. Yeah, hash map is one. Yeah, that's another one that I've used. But yeah, I mean, once you've written a couple of the core basic ones, it's not really that far-fetched to write anymore. And it's also not something you do all the time. You kind of write those, you write some unit tests around them, make sure that they work as you expect, and then it's kind of like a one and done, you forget about it. So, yeah. Since I found arenas, most of my code is just arenas. Yep. Sometimes there's a hash map or a linked list inside those arenas, but most of the time it's just arrays. Yep, exactly. More often than not, I've found flat arrays do the trick. Now, if you're talking interviews, that's a separate thing, right? We're talking practical use here. So if you're talking interviews, if you're interviewing at a place that does leak code style interviews, then yeah, you're going to have to know that stuff, unfortunately. Super difficult ones are related to sorting, which, thanks to QSort, is mostly solved problem. Yeah, I mean, I've written some sorting algorithms too, but like nothing, again, like more often than not with something like that, like if I need something specialized that I don't have the thing, memorized, I'll just go look it up. I'll look up like what does it do, how should it work, and then as long as you understand the concept, you can write the code. Writing the code's the easy part. Okay. This is annoying. I really didn't want to have to do it this way, but I think this is going to be the most robust solution that we have. So platform watch file. Platform watch file. We're going to have to extend this bad boy. Let me actually extend this a little bit. So platform watch file is going to need to take in a bunch of arguments now. And I guess I'm probably just going to have to multi-line this function. So let's take, I guess, all the way to the end. Right, let's do that. Right, we'll do that. Let's back this off to another line so it's not quite as obnoxious. There. So I guess we should probably do written first and then deleted. Right, so I'm thinking that's what the new platform watch file looks like. So essentially, anytime we watch a file at the platform level, we're going to have to provide these things. This is not something you normally would do. Like I said, the asset system will handle this for you, right? This is not something that you'd normally have to do, but there are cases where you'd want to do it, like hot reloading game code. So if we provide that and then come over here to watch file, and I'm actually just going to take this definition and paste it here. And get rid of the, oops. Get rid of that, right? Register watch is going to have to be updated. Let's see. So register watch is actually going to wind up being the same function signature. So let's take this. Oops. Guess I should probably paste that under here. That's really annoying. I lost what I copied. Yeah, I'll take that. And then go here, delete to the end of the line. All right. So we have register watch here. I'm also going to take this and go to the top. Oops, the top, the actual top. And actually, do we not have this for declared? I guess we don't. Okay, even better. Perfect. All right, so register watch will now have to store these things. Let's see. So Linux file watch, we'll need to go to definition on that. And we'll go here. And now this time, we would need to have semicolons. Right? And we're going to have to save off watcher written callback equals watcher written callback, watcher written context equals watcher written context, watcher deleted callback equals watcher deleted callback, watcher deleted context equals watcher deleted context, right? So we'll save those things off. And then we'll come down here. And obviously we're going to have to modify the call to this, which is fine. So we'll do is binary watcher written callback, watcher written context, watcher deleted callback, and watcher deleted context. Right? And I guess we'll multi-line this guy out too. It's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. All right. Now, we also need to go up here to our internal states and delete these guys, because we don't want them anymore. And we don't want the ability to register these anymore. In fact, I'm going to go to the header file and delete these first. And delete these from here. Because now we don't register those, they're just passed along with the callback, or the request rather. Okay, so update platform watchers. Looks like the first thing that we handle is actually the deleted callback. So instead of looking at the state pointer, what we're actually going to look at is the watch, right? So this is just going to be that, right? So if that callback exists, we pass it, or we execute it rather, and then we pass the context along with it. And the same is going to be true here. If the watcher written callback exists on the watch, then we pass it. And then it's going to be the same thing here, right? And that's going to resolve all the errors here. That's going to be a little bit more code that I'm going to have to rewrite in the other platform layers, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. Okay, so that means in entry C, when we do a callback, and let me go to definition and get this function. Watched file updated. I want to actually paste a type def here, and we're going to do watched file updated, right? We'll come back to that in just a second. We essentially are going to comment out that line, right? And we'll come back to that in just a minute. So down here, which I realize you guys probably can't see that behind my big head. So we don't have an event register anymore that happens. What we do instead is in platform watch file, we actually pass the callback that we need, right? Which, let's see, the listener is going to be the application, right? Yeah, so we're going to pass that along as the context, right? So this guy, we are going to do, let's see, it's it's written callback first, right? So watched file updated, and then the context is going to be the app. And then we're not going to worry about deleted. So we're going to pass 0 for the function pointer there, and then 0 for the context on that. So now we can actually get rid of this and go to this and update it to actually handle what we need to do. So let's see. We get file parent, that's application. Application is going to be context, right? So we can take that. We don't have this code anymore. So that check is actually not necessary. So we can get rid of that. And then instead of having to extract out of context data U32 sub 0 like we have in other places, we could just do watcher ID, and we can check to see if that is the same, right? So we can go ahead and check that, and then we'll go ahead and reload or unload the game library. If that fails, we just return, right? Because this is not a Boolean. It doesn't care about the result. And then again, just dealing with errors, returning false. We don't really worry about that. Okay. So I think here we do unload, and then we do the reload of the game library. So actually, I think that's it. I think that's actually it. I think that's all we need to do at this level. Platform watch file. What is this bleating about? Too few arguments in call. K package C. Oh, okay. All right. That actually does make sense. Let's close this one. We do actually need to, kind of handle this differently. So platform watch file. We actually have a few. Let's see. So we need some sort of way. We need some sort of way here to call back to the K package system to actually watch the file. This actually makes me think that the K package maybe shouldn't be handling this level. So we may actually have to move that that notification to the asset system, right? Because the asset system is going to do K package asset watch, which ultimately calls this. I don't think. I feel like we might be able to eliminate watches at this level, actually. We might be able to just track everything we need at the asset level and not even worry about doing it at the K package level, which would actually simplify our code even further. Now that I think about it. Because all the callbacks and stuff could be handled at the asset system level. Let me, oh, Jeet, how's it going? Good to see you. How much can how much Kohi can render? What do you mean by that? What do you mean, how much can it render? Like, how many things can it render? I have no idea. I've not actually benchmarked it. We're not really at that point. Once we start developing the game a little bit further, we'll know. I mean, I have theoretical limits, right? But they're theoretical. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, you guys are still talking about leak code stuff. Yeah, suits ruin everything. Job market's terrible. Yeah, ain't that the truth? Um, People who don't know how to code are coming up with the interview process. Yeah, that's true in a lot of cases too. I've dealt with some of those. Um, all right. Anyway, I think, given the time, it's going to be time to end the stream. So I think I'm going to leave off here because I do have to get up and work in the morning. Remove watch at this level. Do this at asset system level with watch written, deleted, callbacks. All right. That's going to do it for tonight. Let me find somebody to raid. And while I do that, I do want to just say thank you to everybody that was here. I do appreciate you guys. If you guys are so inclined, I would really appreciate a follow. I'm trying to grow the channel. Trying to kind of inspire more people to get into the game engine development space. We need more competition in this space, and I think that drives ingenuity, and we definitely need more of it. So, I'm looking to increase my reach and hopefully inspire more people to get into this and make cool stuff. All right, let me see. Let me see who I can raid. Kind of want to find somebody that's doing something similar, if that is here. I don't know if we're going to be able to find any like C or C++ dev. I don't know if there's anything out there tonight doing that kind of stuff. All right. How about... I do see a couple of options that I have, though. Let's go with... Bear with me for a second. How good do I know Japanese? Basic level at most. Enough where I can ask people questions and like semi-understand answers, but that's about it. I need to improve with it. I need to get back to studying it eventually. All right. We are going to raid Hypnotic Games. He's a good buddy of mine, and he's trying to grow his stream as well. So we're going to go over and see what he's up to. It looks like he's doing a little bit of modeling, but we'll see kind of what he's up to as far as what game he's working on currently or what project he's working on currently. Anyways, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you again for the follows, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.